What's up, Kings? It's Keefe. At this point in time, I've been on NoFap for at least 4 years, maybe 5. I really don't keep track of it, but it's definitely been at least 4 years. And in this video, I want to give you my experiences with it, what benefits I've received, and just kind of the journey of how that's gone, and also how I've managed to stay on it for this long. So at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my technique for making sure that I don't relapse so that you can also apply it. It literally works instantly. It pretty much works every single time. So I know it'll be really beneficial to you. Now let's go ahead and get into everything, but before that, hit the subscribe button and bell icon so you don't miss new videos. This channel is about helping men level up and become those high value versions of themselves. Now let's get started. So honestly, my experiences with NoFap started with porn-induced ED. I actually didn't know that NoFap was a thing at first. I just knew that this practice that I'm doing right here can't be helping me, and I knew I was starting to have an issue. So it actually hit a breaking point for me when I was with an actual physical woman and I had legitimate sexual problems, and I decided I needed to get something done about this. So I ended up speaking with a therapist at the time who actually introduced me to NoFap, not like NoFap like the community or whatever, the YouTubers about it or whatever, but introduced me to the concept of like porn-induced ED and showed me the scientific literature on the subject and all the other issues related to compulsive pornography and all this stuff. So pretty much from there, I was already doing NoFap, but at this point, now that I had the data in front of me that showed me, yes, this is actually an issue, like I knew it was time to actually commit to doing this practice. And one thing I honestly think is really funny about these studies that I've read now and the information I learned when it pertained to this subject is how every time you talk to guys, there's not a guy out there who doesn't pretend like he's like a sex god, right? Every single guy acts like he's this sex god, sex guru. He knows everything about it. He's never had a problem. But the studies would actually show that of men in our age range, in the 20s, even in the 30s, and certainly in the teenage years, you're looking at least a third of those guys have had legitimate physical issues when it pertains to sex related to internet pornography being an issue. And 2/3 of them have either had psychological or physical issues, that meaning their inability to stay present in the sexual experience, which a lot of people have experienced as well. So literally every time you're in a room with your friends and they're talking a big game about this, just know that 2/3 of them are full of shit. So like I said, guys, once I got that information presented to me that this was a real thing and that I needed to actually get on this practice, I just went all in on it. I'm not the kind of guy who goes on Reddit forums and all that kind of nonsense, but just to me personally, I went all in. Once I got the information, I knew this was a thing, I just personally decided, okay, we're going to go all in and we're going to actually do this. And the first real benefit that I noticed from going on NoFap happened pretty quickly, and it was the increase in sex drive. And this really, I think, comes from the fact that once you start on this practice, you begin to detach from that part of you that's really been possessing you all the time, and that's that compulsive sex drive. And once you stop giving into it constantly, you can start to recognize that it's there. And so I was very immediately hit with this wall of like sexual energy, wanting to go back to the old way of doing things. And I just had to resist that. And this is where most people tend to fail at just about everything they do in life. The hardest part about making a YouTube channel, for example, is you got to get that first 100 or that first 1,000 subscribers and kind of get off the ground. And then it becomes a little bit easier from there. And it's the same with like your fitness journey. You just got to push through that first month or so and it gets a little bit easier. And with NoFap as well, those first few days, most people get all fired up and then they cave within a week. And so I didn't actually cave, and so I started to get more and more out of the practice. Now, at the same point that I started doing this, I started going through a real identity shift at the same time. I realized that a lot of the things I was doing and had been doing up to that point were not serving me and who I wanted to be in my life. And so I was shifting a lot of parts of my life. And that actually brings up a really powerful point when it comes to NoFap, is a lot of people, they get really focused on one thing that's going to change their lives. And this practice on its own isn't going to do much of anything for you. Sure, you'll get physical benefits. You won't have the sexual issues that you had if you get on the practice, obviously. But as far as like completely changing your life, it's only going to do so much if it's on its own. You have to change as a person, because if you keep doing the exact same things, hanging out with the exact same people, thinking about the exact same stuff, and you just do this one practice, one, you're going to fail at the practice because you as a person never changed. You're trying to be the same person and completely change a part of your life. And then the other thing is, if you don't change anything else, you can't expect to get results. So that's a really big key when it comes to doing this practice, actually, is make sure that you're actually committed to a self-development journey, because that's really what NoFap's about, is improving yourself. So like I said, I was really going through this identity shift. I started getting clear on my goals for the future and started going after them. I was reading at least one book per week, usually two. I was learning about social dynamics. I was learning about intersexual relationships. I was learning about money. I was getting my career like aimed in a direction that I liked. I was just really working on everything about myself. Got my diet better, got my training better in the gym. And I think the benefits to this point now with NoFap began to become a little bit more indirect. They weren't like direct benefits, like I woke up in the morning and suddenly I'd gained 20 pounds of muscle and I just like the whole universe was downloading into my consciousness, or all this crazy shit that you'll hear on the internet sometimes. Really, the truth of the matter was, it just becomes a part of your life over time. So some of those short-term benefits, though, obviously, your confidence is going to go up. Your ability to interact with people is going to be better. You're going to be able to connect because you're not so in your head. You're not looking at women like they're sex objects. Things like you're going to notice your energy going up, your self-discipline, your ability to control your compulsions. All these things do happen in the short term, and that's why I say indirectly, NoFap did benefit me when it came to these other areas of my life, because it's just kind of like you're making a statement to yourself. If you can control this part of your life and you can fix this one thing that's been holding you back, you can start to clean up your whole life. You get into the mindset of putting everything in the right places. And as I mentioned, the benefits at this point have become very much indirect. They're just parts of my day-to-day life. The benefits of NoFap at this point are almost, I guess, the same as the benefits you would expect from working out, right? Like if you work out, you get to have a great body, you get to be stronger than other people and more physically gifted, you're more athletic, all these things. But it's just more of a part of your day-to-day existence. It's not like every day you're walking around like realizing just how strong you are and like you're getting like picking up cars and things like that. At some point, it just becomes a natural part of your life. And NoFap's kind of the same thing. So after having done this for so long, I've just become more internalized to the fact that I have more self-control. I'm not controlled by compulsions nearly to the degree that most people are. I tend to have more energy, more time in my day because I'm not fixated on this other thing. I usually have more control over my focus because I've learned to detach from this part of myself. And ultimately, I also have better physical connections with men and women. I can just enjoy social interactions more. I have more confidence. I don't feel ashamed of myself for doing this thing. So if all that sounds good to you, you should definitely consider getting on NoFap. Plus all the physical benefits. I don't have any sexual issues that I had when I was doing this practice. Now, when it comes to making sure that you can stay on the path and not fold like most men do, there's a couple things I want to get into. First, I want to explain the way you should look at doing this practice, and then I'm going to give you a technique for when you're in that spot where you really feel like you're about to relapse. So pretty much the way you want to look at this is two things. Number one is be driven by a pain point rather than something like inspiring. Because a lot of people, like I mentioned, they think NoFap is just this amazing thing. It's going to change everything about your life and you're going to turn into this hyper successful person. And it just doesn't really work that way. It has to go along with you deciding you're going to be a successful person. And for me personally, I found that the reason I was able to do this is because I looked at the pain that watching porn constantly and having these issues was causing me. And because I could see that pain point and realize like this is unacceptable, it was easier for me to make a change. If you're looking at it and thinking, well, gee, I need to get on this practice so I can do all these crazy, amazing things, and like I'm super disciplined and I'm all alpha and masculine and all this shit, it's like, dude, you're going to end up folding on it because it's not going to work independently. Like you as a person have to decide to completely change. So what I recommend you do for this is look at this practice and look at how what you're doing right now has been holding you back. And look at the things it's causing you. How's it affecting you physically? How's it affecting your energy, your discipline, your success in other areas? Is it holding you back from a lot of things? And start to identify those things and realize like, gee, this is unacceptable. Then you put yourself in a place where you can break free from the compulsion a little bit easier and you can start to create a new version of yourself who is in general a more dominant, successful kind of guy. And it's not just about trying to use one practice as some gimmick to make yourself that kind of person. We want to change you as a whole, and it starts by getting clear on how the person you are right now is unacceptable and that the things you're doing right now are putting you in a position that you're not happy with. And when that pain hits, you'll be able to change really easy. Now, the second part of this is a lot of guys get on this thing where they're super fixated with this practice and they make it this huge deal. They're like treating it like it's a part of their life. I know I make videos on the subject sometimes, so it sounds like I do, but in all honesty, I really don't think about it that much. I just make a video because I know a lot of you guys get value out of it. But at the end of the day, if you're counting your streaks, like I mentioned, I literally don't know how long. I know it's been at least 4 years, probably 5 years, but if you're counting the streak, basically you're constantly keeping it in your attention. And so what you focus on is just going to expand, and it's going to take up more of your mental energy, and it's going to be harder to stay on the practice. Whereas if it's just kind of like a part of your day-to-day life, you don't think about it, and the benefits just become internalized. So at first, obviously, when you get started on the practice, you're going to experience that motivation, and like it's a part of you and you're thinking about it and all these, just like any new habit that you form. When you first start going to the gym, everybody wants to buy all the new clothes and buy all the supplements and all that. It's like totally normal. And then you get into it and you just kind of becomes a part of your day-to-day life and you don't think about it. But embrace that. Make it a part of your day-to-day life and just something that you are, rather than making it this huge deal that you're constantly fixated on. And when it comes to that moment when you really feel like you're about to relapse, this technique I'm about to share with you is the key to making sure that you don't. And it's really simple, quite honestly. You just need to ask yourself this question, or make this statement to yourself more clearly. Just say, this isn't real. Just say that consciously to yourself in that moment when you feel like you're about to give in to the compulsive behavior. Because here's the thing, your old reptilian brain, in the back of your brain back here, your hypothalamus area, where your sex drive is controlled and where your ability to reproduce is controlled and all that, it starts to possess you when it sees these certain situations that you end up fapping off to. It's what possesses you when you see an attractive girl or when you see a phone screen with an attractive girl on it. But what's happening is your brain is getting fooled by the screen. And so it thinks that's real, but you consciously, you rationally can know this is not real. But what happens is that part of us is so strong and we haven't learned to detach from it. So what happens is it takes over us and we just give into it. Now, what this practice does when you say to yourself, this isn't real, when you do that, is it suddenly creates this detachment in your head. And all of a sudden, you can look at the situation clearly and you can be like, what's going on? And you can realize like a part of you was taking over, a part of you that has a certain drive. It's the part of you that wants to survive and reproduce. It's that biological drive that's been around since the beginning. And it's a good thing, but right now it's getting fooled. And when you can get yourself into that clear mind and detach from it, you honestly kind of look at this situation. You honestly feel like you just did something embarrassing in public. Only this time, instead of other people looking at you and being embarrassed, you're looking at that part of you and being embarrassed. And you're kind of like, what the hell am I doing? And like all of a sudden, like you can't even get any enjoyment out of the situation because now you're looking at the screen for what it is. You're looking at it and realizing this is some 2D image. It's pixels on a screen. It's not real. And it's like you just lose all interest all of a sudden. You go completely deflated by just remembering to make that statement. This isn't even real. And it's just completely turns you off to the subject. So guys, I really hope that's helpful. If you got some of that video, give me a like, hit the subscribe button and bell icon so you don't miss new videos, and I'll talk to you later.